Hello, learning partners. My name is Mary. I'm the Executive Director of the Alternative Breaks program this year. And I know a few of you couldn't make it to Learning Partner training a couple weeks ago, so I wanted to go ahead and make this video. I'm going to go through the slides from the presentation that we covered at the meeting and bring you up to speed on everything that you missed. So hopefully you'll have all the information that you need to have a really great alternative breaks experience. And if you still have any questions at the end of this presentation, please feel free to contact us at gwaltbreaks@gmail.com, and yeah, I'll follow up with an email, so you'll have all of my information there. But please just follow along. I have the slides from the presentation right here in front of me, so I'm just going to be going through those one by one. And yeah, please feel free to follow along, and please also look at the Learning Partner Guide that will be attached to the email as well. So thank you in advance, and I'll just get started. Okay, so like I said, my name is Mary Moore. I'm a senior here. I am studying English and Spanish, and I started in the Alt Breaks program as a sophomore. I went on the trip to New Orleans, Louisiana, and then as a junior, I led the trip to Atlanta, Georgia. Now I'm on the executive board, and I am going on the trip to Costa Rica. So GW Alt Breaks has been a huge part of my college experience, and I'm so thankful for that. I have had a lot of great experiences, and I think I've really grown through the program. So I'm very excited to share it all with you who are new to the program, and to welcome all of you back who are returning learning partners or previous trip participants. So yeah, thank you for your interest in the program and for your willingness to go on these trips and to bring all that you have to offer to them as well. We really appreciate it and are excited about it as well. Okay, so to give an overview of the Alternative Breaks program, we do week-long community service and service learning trips that focus on a variety of issue areas. So they range from refugee resettlement in Atlanta, Georgia to mass incarceration in Los Angeles. So we go to these places and focus on what that community needs, what issues that specific community is facing. So it varies from destination to destination. The program, as it is now, started in 2006 after Hurricane Katrina, when a group of students from GW went down to Louisiana to work on the hurricane relief effort there. And yeah, that trip has been happening ever since. It's still our largest trip. Like I said, it was the first trip that I went on. It's really great. But the program has also grown a lot since then. And now we belong to this larger organization called Breakaway, which has programs like ours at 200 colleges and universities across the country. It's a great network for us to be part of, and we get a lot of resources from them. So that's kind of an overview of how the program looks here. On the next slide, you'll see a snapshot of our program by numbers. So there are 25 students leading trips this year. We have 11 trips in total, so one over fall break, which happened in October. That was our first time doing a trip over the short fall break, and it was really successful. We sent a group to Baltimore, Maryland, but we also have 5 trips over winter break and 5 trips over spring break this year. We have 17 faculty and staff members, just like you all, that will be joining us, and 152 student participants going on these trips. So it's a very big program. Very excited about that. I'm very excited that that many people get to be involved in this opportunity. Now, this amounts to a lot of community service hours done collectively. So last year it was over 8,000. Like I said, we have 11 trips, and we work with 20 community partners. So kind of like each group focuses on whatever issue that community is facing in that destination. We work with community partners in those destinations and those locations as well. So that means organizations that are already established in these places working on these issues. Yeah, so we have a lot of close relationships with organizations across the country and in the other countries that we visit as well. Okay, so I'll talk a little bit more about these partnerships here as well on the next slide, where you'll see a diagram of the structure of our program here at GW. So there at the top is the Honey W. Nashman Center for Civic Engagement and Public Service. We are a student organization, Alternative Breaks is, but we are housed under this GW department. So that means we work closely with the people there in that office and get a lot of resources, support from them. So although we are student run and autonomous in that way, we do work very closely with the Nashman Center and get a lot of support and resources from the people there. So you see them at the top, and then under that, under the Nashman Center, is the executive board. So that consists of myself and 4 other students who coordinate the program. And we oversee mainly the trip leaders, which I'll talk about next. Like I said, we have 25 students leading trips this year. We work really closely with them. We mentor them, and we help them plan all the logistics of the trip. We help them select participants for the trips, things like that. And then we really assist them in fostering relationship with the community partners and with you all as well. So they should be your main point of contact for the program, as well as the main point of contact for the community partners. But again, we oversee all of that communication, all of those relationships as an executive board. And finally, we have those trip participants at the bottom there. We, again, really leave it up to the trip leaders to communicate with them and to foster that relationship, but it's something that we monitor carefully. And yeah, so that's kind of how the program is structured here at GW. Okay, now if you flip to the next slide, you will see our mission statement, which is very important, and I'm just going to take the time to cover a few of the parts in bold, but please feel free to obviously take your time reading through the mission statement and really thinking about how you as a learning partner can further it on your trip. We model our program on these 3 kind of action items, service, education, and reflection. So we believe that these 3 are key to having a really meaningful service experience. So we believe in educating people before they go on these trips. That means educating them about the issue area, about the destination, and about some larger ideas, some larger concepts like volunteerism and how to enter a community respectfully, things like that. So we believe that's really key. The education is really key before one serves. So of course then that service is really important too. We seek out organizations and opportunities that will provide really meaningful service experiences for our participants and the members of our organization. And then finally, we believe in reflecting after those experiences. So when you've done your service, when you've been together, when you've had a meeting, we believe in reflecting on those experiences as well in order to process them and turn them into something really meaningful in your life. So through that model, we hope that people in our program will grow personally, become more socially aware, and become a more active citizen in the world. So through education, service, and reflection, we really believe that these things are possible, and we really try everything we can to further this mission and to foster these attributes in everybody who's a part of our program, whether it's participants, ourselves as an executive board, the trip leaders, or even you as learning partners. So again, please just take time to reflect on the mission statement. I hope that these goals resonate with you and that you will take the time to think about how you can foster them and further them on your trip and within your group. Okay, now if you flip to the next slide, you'll see our values as a program. So please, again, take your time to read through them and to think about how you can foster them and think about which ones resonate with you. But I'm going to touch on one that I think is especially important right now that I'd like to mention, and that is full engagement. So we really hope that you fully engage with this program to make the most of your experience. So that means engaging with your leaders, engaging with the people on your trip, engaging in all the education activities that are going on, as well as being fully engaged on the trip. So working with the students there and engaging in the service and engaging with the community partners. So it's just something I would really suggest that you focus on and try to do on your trip. I think you'll get the most out of your experience with the program if you engage fully and put in some time and effort and energy. But also I ask that you help others become fully engaged. So please do everything you can to engage the student participants and the student leaders when you're on the trip, as well as beforehand and after. So, and getting ready for the trip, doing all the education, when you're actually there on the trip, doing the service, and even when you come back. So that could look like coordinating group bonding or some sort of reorientation, some sort of post-trip service, which I'll touch on more later. But for now, I just wanted to highlight that full engagement piece. I think it's really important to put as much into the program as you can so that you get as much out of it. Yeah, so just wanted to touch on the full engagement piece before we go on. Okay, now I'll kind of give an overview of what a alternative breaks trip does look like here at GW. So while you're actually on your trip, the majority of your time will be spent doing service with your community partners. It's really important to us that this is the bulk of the trip, the bulk of the time that you have there, that it's spent serving. But also we incorporate cultural immersion activities, so giving you and the students a chance to experience what that location and what that destination has to offer, what it's famous for, what museums are there, what food you need to try, things like that. So there's definitely time built in for that as well. So typically it will look like a long day of service followed by a cultural activity and then reflection in the evening. So reflection, again, is something you'll do every night, reflecting on service, on the cultural activity, whatever it may be. But that's kind of what the day looks like on your trip. Now, leading up to your trip, hopefully you've been involved with these pre-trip education meetings that I've talked a little bit about. If you haven't been able to attend any of the meetings, I hope your leaders have at least invited you to them and kind of told you what's been going on. The trip leaders plan these pre-trip education meetings. Again, they cover topics like the specific community that you'll be entering, the destination that you'll be going to, the community partner, the work that they're doing, things like that, as well as some more general topics like volunteerism and what it means to enter a community respectfully. So that's kind of what's been going on leading up to the trip in terms of education, and then fundraising as well. This is a huge part of the Alternative Breaks program here at GW. We try to keep our trip cost really low so that what participants are paying to go on these trips out of pocket is really, really low, just so that they're more financially accessible to everybody here at the university. But that does mean we do a lot of fundraising, and this is something that the leaders find really difficult generally. So anyways, they spend a lot of time doing the fundraising for their trips, making sure that they have enough money to make them happen, engaging participants in the fundraising efforts, finding the fundraising efforts, being successful in the fundraising efforts. So it takes a lot of time. That's a huge part of what leaders do leading up to the trip. So this is something that would be good to check up on if you haven't done so already. Any extra support you can offer the leaders in this way would be helpful. It's a difficult part of the All Breaks experience, but everything's going really well, I can assure you. Yeah, so that's a huge part of what the Alternative Breaks trip looks like. A lot of it happens pre-trip, so in the pre-trip education meetings and fundraising. But I would like to mention reflection as well. So as I've said before, reflection is huge for us. We think it's really important to having a meaningful service experience. So there will be reflection after every meeting, after every day of service. You could even reflect after a meal. Whatever your leaders have planned and whatever they see fit, reflection is really important and important to internalizing the value of these trips, I think. So that's another huge part of an Alternative Breaks trip. Now, these following things, service projects, transportation, housing, meals, and cultural activities, I'll talk a little bit about, but they vary very vastly from trip to trip. So I would recommend that you ask your trip leader, if you haven't already, what they're going to look like for your specific trip and what they're going to look like in your specific destination. So just to give some examples, service projects can vary from building a house with Habitat for Humanity in New Orleans, Louisiana, to making what are called eco bricks in Costa Rica on a sustainable farm, to painting a classroom for refugees in Atlanta, Georgia. So service projects vary widely from destination to destination, and I would just encourage you to ask your trip leaders what you're going to be doing in your destination on your trip so that you have a better idea if you haven't done so already. Hopefully they've shared some of this information with you, but it's definitely something worth asking about. Transportation varies as well. So some trips will have rental vans that leaders and learning partners and participants, if they're old enough, will be asked to drive. Again, this is something you should have heard about already if it pertains to your trip, but it's just something I'd like you to be aware of. That said, if you're going to New Orleans, you'll be having charter buses take you from location to location. So again, transportation can vary widely from trip to trip, but that's just to give you an idea of what it could look like on yours. Housing varies widely as well. So for example, we do use Airbnb in some of our locations like Atlanta, Georgia and Los Angeles, California. But in other locations, the partner site will take care of housing. It'll be included. So that happens with kind of all-inclusive partner sites like Tandana, the Tandana Foundation in Ecuador. They provide housing there. So again, housing varies widely from destination to destination, and it is something worth asking your leaders about if it's something you want to know about beforehand. Meals are a little more standard. I would say the standard Outbreaks meal experience is a cold breakfast in the morning, so a bar, fruit, cereal, oatmeal maybe if you're feeling really fancy in the morning at your housing site before you head out for your service. So that's a breakfast followed by maybe a sack lunch that you've packed the morning or the night before. So PB&J is a very, very popular item on an Outbreaks trip, so prepare yourself for that. And dinner is something that varies a little bit. If you're staying in an Airbnb, you will most likely be buying groceries, a big load of groceries at the beginning of the week and cooking throughout the nights, the rest of the trip. But again, if you're staying in an all-inclusive partner site, such as the Tandana Foundation, then they will include meals as well. So it just varies from trip to trip, but that's to give you an idea of the possibilities. We do eat out sometimes, especially in places like New Orleans, where the food is a big part of the culture there. The trip leaders will plan some trips to restaurants and plan to have some extra money in their fundraising budget for some meals out. But again, that's just to give you an idea of what meals could look like on your trip. It's a whole variety of possibilities. Finally, I've said this before, but cultural activities can vary from trip to trip as well. It could be a trip out to a restaurant to taste some of the local cuisine, or it could be a trip to a museum, or it could be a trip to another partner site where you'll hear about the work that another organization is doing that pertains to your issue area. So cultural activities vary, but we do like to have this component of a trip so that people do get to experience the destination, the location for what it's known for, what it's famous for, what it has to offer. So that's kind of what an Outbreaks trip looks like. So if you have any questions, again, I would encourage you to ask your trip leaders, or as always, feel free to reach out to us, the executive board, at our email account. Okay, so if you flip to the next slide, you'll see that we're going to talk a little bit about your roles as a learning partner. So I'll cover logistics, participation, education and student development, as well as the LP leader relationship. Okay, so your role, and again, these will be broken down by pre-trip, on-trip, and post-trip. So starting with logistics, pre-trip, we just ask that you touch base with and support your leaders as they plan everything for the trip. So they really are in charge of planning everything from service projects to cultural activities to housing, rental vans, meals, everything, things like that. So I would just ask that you check in with them and make sure everything's going okay. eBoard checks in with them regularly. Like I said, we mentor these trips and we meet with them every other week, if not every week. But it would be great for you to reach out to them as another source of support as well as they're planning everything. I would especially ask that you as learning partners discuss a contingency plan in case anything goes wrong, because you will be there with them and be the ones facing this if something does happen on your trip. So it would be something good for you as well as leaders to think about ahead of time. But that's it. So on trip, we ask that you act as a liaison between the university and the group that you're with. The leaders are in charge of sending progress reports to Ashley Trick, our supervisor in the Nashman Center, and they know exactly when throughout the week they need to do this, exactly when throughout the week they need to check in with her, but I would ask that you follow up with them about that, make sure that they are doing it, and of course, I would ask that you step in case of emergency. So this is kind of where we generally think of the LP relationship or the LP role as being a participant plus, and this is kind of where that plus comes in. So I hope that you enjoy the trip and get to participate in the trip just as any other student participant would, but that you kind of step in a little more, especially in case of emergency. So just thinking about what that might look like. We've put the leaders through various emergency scenarios, so they're pretty prepared for things that could come up, but hopefully you would be able to step in as well and aid them in whatever needs to be done in case of emergency on a trip. As far as post-trip goes, I would hope that you engage in future service projects. We as an e-board set a lot of those up, so you're always invited. But if you would like to coordinate one for your group or any reunion as well, that would be more than welcome, just to keep the group engaged and keep them coming back together and bonding and just being there for one another in this kind of service capacity would be wonderful. So that's kind of how your logistics role could look as part of the program. Okay, next is participation. So we expect and just hope for your sake that you will be as engaged and want to participate as much as possible. Like I've said before, I think you will get as much out of the program as you put in, so I would encourage as much participation as possible. So pre-trip, this looks like attending pre-trip education meetings, pre-trip events, pre-trip fundraisers whenever possible. Please just integrate yourself into the group. Don't let yourself be a stranger who just shows up and sits next to someone on the plane who you don't even know that's going on your same trip when that time comes. But please engage as much as possible, get to know the people on your trip. It'll make your experience that much more wonderful, as well as the experience of everybody else on your trip if they know who you are and get to meet you and learn about you and hear what you have to offer as well. On the trip, please participate in the service as much as possible, just like everybody else on the trip. Please lead by example. These students will see you working really hard and want to work really hard as well, we hope. And please participate in reflection and in cultural activities as well. Your leaders may have already asked you to lead a reflection or may do so in the future, so just be prepared and excited about that. Yeah, so please participate in everything on the trip, just like the students, just like the student participants, as well as the student leaders. And finally, please attend any reunion or post-trip event that happens when you get back. Yeah, we really want you to be engaged with the group and fully integrated into the group, and lead by example as well. Okay, as far as education and student development go, this is a really cool space for a learning partner to enter. I think that the role of a faculty or staff member of GW on the trip is really exciting, and I think you have a lot of potential to help these students grow. So this particular piece for me is really exciting. So pre-trip, please help the leaders with education. Whether you have a special expertise in the issue area or not, I think you can either, if you are an expert in the issue area, offer resources, knowledge, material, things like that to help the group prepare, Or if you're not an expert, then you have a really cool opportunity to learn alongside the group, and that's just as exciting. So please assist leaders with research, provide materials, like I said, contribute as much as possible in whatever way you can, and just help the group understand the importance of this issue area, maybe by being excited about it yourself. Encourage them to grow in that way and to grow, to educate themselves and to put importance on this pre-trip education. On trip, please continue to do this. Continue to show them how important these issue areas are and show them how they can grow through learning about these things and working on these things. This can happen by reflection, especially making sure that people are processing the service that they do, the experiences they have, and reflecting on them. So the next part about meeting with leaders daily, I think is really crucial for a learning partner as well. Meet daily with leaders to reflect on their leadership and the trip progress is exactly what it says. But for me, this was really important on the trip that I led in the past. I can speak to this a little bit. My co-leader and I would meet with our LP every day right when we got back to our Airbnb. We would give the participants some downtime and we would check in with our learning partner. So it was always really great to hear from her what she thought was going well, how she thought we could improve as leaders, if she noticed anything in our participants that maybe we weren't seeing. So if somebody's being particularly quiet, or if she thought we could reach out to somebody a little bit more to bring them in. So again, this is a really good place where you can step in and help these leaders grow, help move the trip along, help make sure that all the participants are growing and being engaged and things like that. So yeah, so that's kind of how that looks on trip. And then post trip, again, just if you can act as a resource for professional development, that would be wonderful. But any way really that you can offer to the students to continue growing after their experience would be really great. And that's something we really like about this program. We really like to offer in this program is that opportunity to continue growing when you get back from GW. To GW from your destination. Okay, next I'm just going to touch on this role between, this role that you have as an LP as it relates to the leaders. So things that you want to be aware of on your trip to make it the most successful, to be the most supportive to your trip leaders is the trip size, your trip leaders' leadership styles, how they work together, how they work with the group, how they work with partner sites, the group dynamic, so among the student participants as well as with the leaders, and the type of service that you're doing. So just making sure that everything is kind of flowing well, that everybody's getting along well, everybody feels supported and feels engaged in the service that you're doing. So one really way that you can be successful in this is to talk to your trip leaders. Definitely before you go on your trip, I would say about how they want their relationship with you to look and how, if you are observing these things in the group, how they want to be approached about them. So like I said, for me on my trip, that looked like a check-in with my LP every day. Throughout the day, of course, whenever we had a moment, we would check in, but definitely at least that one time right when we got back to our housing was really helpful. So just, I would encourage you to be aware of all these factors, but also about how you're going to approach these subjects with your leaders. So it's worth having a conversation with them before you go, before you get on the plane or in that bus to go to your destination and spend the week together. So just figuring out what they hope to have, what kind of relationship they hope to have with you would be really important. Okay, so next we're just going to go through scenarios, kind of. I'm going to talk a little bit about, I guess, incidents and what we expect from LPs in in certain cases. This is a topic and an area where if you have more questions, I would encourage you to reach out to us at gwaltbreaks@gmail.com. Like I said, I'm going to touch upon things like registering with the university and insurance and passports and things like that. But if you want more information, more details, please reach out to us there. If there's any questions that I can't answer, I will turn it over to our supervisor, Ashley Trick, in the Nashville Center. But I'm going to go through these things pretty briefly right now. So here you'll see an incident report. We are going to print a lot of these and put them in the trip binder that I will make for each trip leader to have. But if anything happens on the trip, it is the learning partner's responsibility to fill out this trip incident report. So again, there will be copies of this in the binder, but I just want you to be aware that this is something we expect of you. This is a part of your role as a learning partner. So yeah, please just be aware that incident report is your responsibility. Okay, next I'm going to talk about some travel information. So I am responsible for compiling these binders with lots of information about trip logistics for each trip leader. They will receive them the day before you go on your trip. It will contain details about everybody's emergency contact. So every student, sorry, wait for the ambulance to go by. It will contain information about each student's medical history, who they would like to be contacted on their behalf in case of emergency, things like that. It will also include copies of reservations at your lodging, copies of confirmation for rental cars, things like that, trip roster, contact information, anything that you could possibly want on your trip will be in that binder. I will talk about GW Passport for just a second. So all international trips will be registered with the university via GW Passport. That means each student participant has to register with this portal. And there's a special process for learning partners as well, which if you're on an international trip, you will receive more information about in an email. I have been communicating with the people in that office to figure out who registers where and how to do so. So I will provide more information in that regard in an email at a later date if it pertains to you. If you're on an international trip, please be aware that you need a passport. Just want to remind everybody to make sure that it's current, that it's not going to expire on or around the dates of your trip. And finally, I have been communicating with the same people in the GW Passport office about insurance, helping to get that covered and paid for. So again, if you have more questions about things like registering with the university, about emergency forms, about information that you'll need, about insurance, please contact us at the email account and we will answer your questions, get you more information there. Okay, sorry. Financial information. So a P card has been issued to one of the leaders on every trip. They have been through training. They know how to use it. They know that they need to save receipts. And they know that they have a certain amount of money in their budget to use. But personally, I ask you that you check in with leaders about this. Please check in and make sure that they're saving their receipts. It will save everyone a lot of trouble later on. And please make sure that they are aware of their budget, that they continue to stay on top of that, that they continue to keep track of that throughout the trip. So again, they've been trained on this. We've been over the finances, the P card, all of that extensively, but I ask you as a learning partner that you keep up with them, that you remind them about these things, and yeah, just make sure that everything is on track financially. If you have a P card, please bring it along, but again, one leader on every trip will have a P card and be in charge of reporting and keeping track of it and all of that. So that's kind of how finances look on the trip. Okay, on the next slide, it's advice for a successful LP experience. So I've said these things before, but please take some time to get to know at least your leaders, if not every other student participating on your trip beforehand. Get to know the leaders especially and have that conversation about how they hope your relationship will look, but also get to know the participants. It's really exciting as a participant to have a staff or faculty member on the trip, so I hope that you get to know them and that they get to know you as well and get to be excited about having this person from the university on their trip. Please share your own stories and personal connections as much as you feel comfortable doing so. This can really add to the quality of the trip. It can really break down barriers and help you get to know the people on your trip, as well as help them grow, help them understand the issue areas, why they're important, how they can grow from this experience too. So please share as much as you're willing to. It really adds a lot to the trip. And finally, I hope you have fun. Like I said, this program has given me so much and has been such a wonderful part of my college experience. If you're new to the program, I hope that you see the same wonderful things in the program that I do. And if you're returning, then you know how fun it can be. And I just really hope you have the best time on your trip. Again, I think you will get out as much from this program as you put into it. So I encourage you to take full advantage of this opportunity and to just engage fully as much as possible on your trip, before your trip, after your trip. And I'm just very excited for you all to have this experience. I'll briefly give a little more information about international trips before we wrap up. So some additional expectations involved with international trips include safety mitigation planning. This is really important. We require all learning partners that are going on an international trip to have an international phone plan. We need you to be able to be contacted and to be able to contact us at any time. So this is something that we expect you to take care of ahead of time and that I will be checking in about as well. Leaving the group and the buddy system, this kind of goes for every trip. We hope that nobody's ever alone, but especially on international trips, we ask that you kind of make sure that everybody always has a buddy, that nobody's ever going anywhere alone. And again, monitoring access to alcohol goes for every trip, but especially these international trips. We hope that you kind of step in and make sure that nobody is drinking, nobody has access to alcohol. This gets a little tricky in places like the French Quarter when people have free time, but we are very seriously a drug-free and alcohol-free program. If anybody is found with these substances, we expect the learning partner to take them straight to the airport and send them home on their own money, on their own funds. So I hope that's clear. We are a drug-free and alcohol-free program. If anybody is caught having drugs or alcohol, is found intoxicated, etc., we have a no-tolerance policy. They must be put on a flight home immediately, and they must cover that cost themselves. So again, this is the responsibility of the learning partner to take them to the airport and make sure that they are sent home. But we've received some questions about this in the past, so if you do have any questions about how that would look, please, again, feel free to reach out to us via email. But that's kind of some more expectations regarding safety and mitigation planning. Finally, here's just an overview of some emergency situations and some things to keep in mind regarding that. All students are covered by some insurance from the university. I've worked with the people in the GW Passport office about this as well. Hospital planning, if you're on an international trip, please be sure to have a translator. Should anybody need to go to the hospital, please be sure to send somebody with them if you're in a Spanish-speaking country who will be able to translate there. Finally, I've talked about this as well, but communication with Ashley. So trip leaders have a schedule of when they're required to check in with her, but in emergency situations, please make sure additionally that she is contacted and that she knows what is going on. And again, I'll mention this incident report form. It was a couple slides back, and I told you it would be included in the trip binder, but again, this is an additional expectation of the learning partner to fill this out should anything go wrong on your trip. Okay, so that's a very brief overview of additional expectations and kind of emergency policies. all the just-in-case stuff or in case of emergency stuff, but it's very important, and if you do have any further questions, please reach out to us. I would be happy to talk about it further or to refer you to Ashley if you have any questions or concerns that I can't address and can't talk about more. Okay, made it to the end of the presentation. Not with you to ask for questions, but I've said this many times. If you do have any questions, please do let us know. We are so excited that you're a part of this program, and we want to give you all the information that you need, answer any questions, address any concerns that you may have. So please reach out to me if you'd like to talk more. If there's any question that I can't answer, any concern that I cannot address, I will refer you to Ashley Trick, our supervisor in the Nashville Center. But I am just so thankful and excited that you are a part of this program, and I want to do everything to make you excited as well, to make you feel comfortable and confident, and to just make you have the best time on this trip as possible. So thank you for taking the time to go through this presentation with me. I really appreciate it, and I hope to be talking to you soon, and I hope that you have a great alternative breaks trip and a great experience with the program. So yes, I hope to talk to you soon, and thank you again for going through this presentation.